I used to struggle a lot with overthinking, frustration, aggression, and lack of emotional control or emotional intelligence. I was even diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety when I was younger. Whether that diagnosis was accurate or appropriate is for another video. But in general, my mental health always seemed to be a struggle, and my quality of life suffered as a result of that. Luckily for me, instead of taking dangerous drugs to try to deal with the issues, even though I was prescribed them rather rapidly at the time, instead I found an alternative that was 100% natural and only took 10 minutes of my day. Now, obviously, you already know I'm talking about meditation, and yes, 10 minutes of meditation every single day actually cured all the things that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, all of those symptoms completely gone, and I even gained some profound benefits from it along the way that were completely unexpected. I'm going to quickly walk you through what the transformation was for me, exactly what changed and how it happened and how long it took, and then at the end of the video, I'm also going to break down the simplest way for you to get started on this habit, just in case you want to try it out for yourself. I have been on my self-improvement journey for the last 6 years, and I have tried every habit, every trick, every secret morning routine thing, and I have developed a lot of amazing habits and discipline over those years. And even still, my number one most recommended habit, even above nutrition and fitness and all the things that I'm constantly talking about and coach people on, I recommend meditation as the number one most powerful habit a human being could ever do. Meditate for 10 minutes a day, and if you don't have time for that, meditate an hour a day. This is one of my favorite quotes, and it is very profound to really illustrate the importance of meditation and how it should probably take precedence over everything else that causes you not to have time for it. Now, quick disclaimer here, when you first start meditation, just like I did, you're probably not going to see any, or at least any profound benefits for the first 90 days. However, you have to make sure that you still do it for 90 days straight every single day in order to start reaping these profound benefits. And then once you do, it takes off from there. Now, unfortunately, and you may feel this way currently as you watch this video, almost every single person that I recommend this habit to over the years either, number one, just flat out declines doing it, and there's an important reason which I'll get to in a bit why that is, or number two, they'll do it for 2 to 3 days and then they'll completely stop for two main reasons. First reason is they struggle to keep their mind quiet enough. They actually can't even stay in one spot and stay still because their mind starts going crazy just in the first few minutes. And this is actually the number one biggest sign that you need meditation more than you probably initially realize. And of course, the second reason is because, well, I've already mentioned it, a lot of people just don't see results after doing something for 2 to 3 days. They expected a result by now. They expected their whole life to change in just a couple of days. They expect overnight differences. When that doesn't happen, they stop. As for why a lot of people just shun meditation altogether is the same reason I did for many years, which is I think it's some sort of like weird woo-woo pie in the sky type of a thing where you sit cross-legged, hold your fingers like this, and you have to sing for like 10 minutes straight. So what exactly convinced me to do it in the first place? Well, I was getting into the self-development journey, like I mentioned, going through books, courses, finding mentors online, and really just diving headfirst into this space, and meditation just kept coming up left, right, and center. Not only did all the mentors that I found online that I looked up to and actually wanted to follow in their footsteps all did meditation themselves, but at the same time, there have been a lot of studies and a lot of research that has come out to show actually some pretty conclusive evidence that meditation does actually have a lot of these benefits that it's touted to have. And these are very recent studies that came out, such as one of the studies that was an 8-week meditation program. They took people completely brand new to meditation. After the 8-week program, they actually noticed a significant increase in gray matter in the brain. Gray matter essentially is responsible for things like learning, memory, and also emotional control and intelligence. Now, ever since this evidence has been coming out more and more over the years, it's becoming abundantly clear that meditation actually does have concrete evidence of working very well, and it's becoming a more widely accepted therapeutic intervention for a lot of mental disorders and struggles. But the fact that convinced me the most was that I actually didn't have to sit cross-legged, hold my fingers like this, and sing for an hour like a complete weirdo. It turns out all I had to do was sit down, sit tall, stay awake, stay alert, and just count my breath. That's literally it. Now, I know it sounds way too easy and almost stupid how easy that sounds, and it sounds pointless, doesn't it? It is quite the opposite, I assure you. See, meditation is the very practice of doing nothing, and doing nothing also means thinking about nothing, which basically no human is doing at the moment. Your brain is just a thinking machine, and oftentimes for most of the people out there, our thoughts have completely controlled our brains instead of the other way around. So instead of your brain being what it's supposed to be, which is a tool to help solve problems, help remember things, for avoiding mistakes and so on, it starts to become something that controls us instead. So how did meditation change me? Well, the most impactful thing, and the thing I noticed the most right off the bat after the first 90 days, was the emotional control and emotional intelligence. It literally went from one of my weakest character traits to essentially a strong suit. Now, I would consider myself somebody who has abnormally high levels of testosterone. This is not to boast, it's just I show all signs of high testosterone levels. Now, one of those is a bit of a drawback. A lot of them are positive, but one of them is a bit of a drawback in the sense that it leads to high levels of aggression. This doesn't always manifest physically, though it has in the past many times in the form of throwing things, breaking things, punching things. If it wasn't that, it would often manifest mentally in like the form of mental overwhelming frustration and like mental violence, if you will, just having thoughts that were overwhelmingly like aggressive and as a result destructive. So what happened after the first few months, again around that 90-day period of meditation, there was a noticeable calmness inside my mind, essentially a noticeable detachment from whatever had happened. From whatever was happening around me, I was a lot more detached. It was almost as if whatever happened around me, where I would normally react to it emotionally or however with thoughts and so on, now it almost felt like literally, and it actually felt like this, like I could actually visually see this. It felt like I was taking a step back from what was occurring, and I would actually have the time to process the event emotionally first, and as a result, I would stop reacting to things entirely. In other words, it just felt like permanent peace. And I gotta be honest, this felt like an actual superpower, which motivated me to keep the meditation practice going. What else did this superpower do for me? Number one is it elevated my confidence to the nth degree as a result of this. A lot of the things that we do and a lot of the insecurities that we have, a lot of the things that we avoid doing, all come because we actually care and we have emotional attachment to the opinions of others, our opinion of ourselves about it, fear, all this type of stuff. Now, obviously the newfound control of my own emotional intelligence and my sort of inner environment, if you will, allowed me to completely overcome some insecurities that I had had for a very long time. As a result, I became extremely confident because I just simply was detached from other people's opinions, and I was also detached from the narrative that I would build myself out just arbitrarily, as our minds tend to do. This is what happens. People are walking around with noisy brains, right? Noisy minds, and they don't understand and they can't process what's noise and what's signal, what's reality, and what's a bunch of BS narrative story that you've built up in your own brain, because at the end of the day, that's what the brain does best. It creates bundles of thoughts that lead to stories that you create about either yourself, the world, or others. So meditation brings you closer to understanding reality, looking at things from a more detached and logical, reasonable lens. And as a result, confidence skyrockets, you're a lot more calm, you feel a lot more secure in yourself. Another byproduct of that is being able to handle situations that before seemed extremely difficult or nerve-wracking with absolute grace and ease. Difficult conversations, I've had hundreds of them at this point with no issue whatsoever. So does this sound a little bit crazy? It probably does, right? And maybe it sounds a little too good to be true. Maybe it sounds like I'm trying to sell you on something. Believe me, I know, but that is literally how it felt for me. And that is why, like I said, I truly believe this is the number one most powerful habit. Not one of, I believe it is the single most powerful habit. There's a famous quote that says, almost all of men's problems come from him not being able to sit in a room alone. Most people, like I mentioned already, can't even sit on the couch for 5 minutes with doing nothing. We need constant stimulus from our phones. We need constant noise all the time, constant stories, constant drama being drummed up in our heads to keep us entertained, because if not, we're gonna go crazy, because then we have to face reality and we have to understand that everything that we're thinking is not actually us. That's not our identity, and that could be very fearful if you don't face it. And so problems are created in order to distract our brains from this boredom. It felt like my brain was less noisy. I was hearing a lot less chatter, and I just felt a lot more calm, a lot more peaceful. And funny enough, it just seemed like I would have certain thoughts, feelings, whenever I would visualize things that I wanted perhaps, it would just suddenly appear a day later, even the same day at times. Now people will call this a manifestation. Whether you believe in it or not, that's up to you. But all I'm trying to say here is I felt a lot more connected, in tune with the world. Joe Dispenza, who's written several of some of my favorite books in the world, talks a lot about this meditation, as do many others when they talk about meditation as far as improving your brain brainwave state, taking it from beta state to alpha. I'm not going to get into that stuff too technically in this video, but the point is again, given what the studies are proven through these books, he's also done research on that type of stuff. It does actually calm your brainwaves down to a level where you are more connected with reality and you do have more actual power and influence as to how it unfolds. Even the trivial things like sitting in traffic would often frustrate me, surely you could relate, just gone completely. I actually started enjoying sitting in traffic. I started enjoying waiting for the elevator. I started enjoying all these little trivial things that before I was scrambling to find some sort of dopamine stimulus to fill that void. And the last tremendous improvement was my ability to focus. This is more tangible, but I was literally able to just focus on a task longer and as a result get more done because I was a lot less distracted. Now you'll notice I'm speaking a lot in the past tense here because this wasn't consistent all throughout all of these years, and the reason for that is because just like anything else that's worth doing, it's worth doing every single day. And there has been times throughout, I am still human after all, where I did start to sway off of the meditation habit, but I always come back to it at some point. I might sway for a month, but then I go back for several. The problem is you know, I would get too excited about a project, or again, I would feel like, oh, I don't have time for this today, I'll do it tomorrow, and you have this excitement, but then what happens is slowly stress starts to creep back into your life, slowly distraction creeps back in, slowly the mindless seeking for attention and dopamine starts to slow back in, and next thing you know, a month, 2 months have gone by, you didn't meditate, and you got to start it back up again because you realize you're losing control of your brain, and it is that simple for that to occur. So this is not just a habit that you can do and then coast off of for the rest of your life. It has to be done every single day. Now, do I expect you to do it every single day for the rest of your life? Unless you want to be a monk, a Tibetan monk or something like this, then probably not. But the goal is to strive for that. Now, here's how I recommend starting up a meditation practice to make it as simple as possible and to avoid any sort of overwhelm, because it can be overwhelming, believe it or not. And the very first thing with that is do not start with 10 minutes. 10 minutes does actually feel like a lot of time, because just like first time in the gym, you're going to do a few reps, you're going to be very sore. It's going to be tiring, it's going to be difficult. Same thing with meditation. So I recommend that you actually start with 2 minutes, okay? And what you're going to do is you're simply going to sit upright, ideally in a chair, not with any back support, because then you start to doze off, you might fall asleep, things like this. You're going to use your phone. No need for any crazy apps here, okay? Just use the timer on your phone for 2 minutes and do that for a week or two to start. What you're going to do is you're going to count your breaths. You're going to breathe normally in through your nose, out through your nose. And as you're counting your breaths, I like to count the breaths as 1 on the way in and 2 on the way out, 3 on the way in, 4 on the way out. So you're counting the breaths like that, and your goal is to just keep counting the breaths until the timer is up. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to start getting all these thoughts flooding in the first couple seconds, okay? The first time you do this, it's gonna be pretty frustrating because your goal is to not really have or get distracted by these thoughts. You will have thoughts, but the point is to not get distracted by them, to not get caught up in them. So when you have a thought and then you realize, oh, I'm thinking about something. I'm thinking about what am I gonna eat? I'm thinking about what happened yesterday. I'm thinking about what I'm gonna do today. I'm thinking about that project. When these thoughts come in, catch it. The second you catch it, you're gonna let it go and you're gonna come back to the breath and restart the counting process all the way back down to 1. Now, you're gonna keep practicing this. Again, the first couple times it will be very frustrating, just like the gym is for everybody. There's always some form of learning curve, and this is no different. But I promise you, once you start going, after about a week, maybe you bring it up to 3 minutes of meditation, you start counting the breaths, and eventually at, let's say, 10 minutes, I'm counting out somewhere between 60 to 80 breaths without getting distracted. I'm not saying no thoughts are coming in. Thoughts are going to come in. That's just the nature of how the mind works. But over time, less thoughts will come in, and the ones that do come in, you're able to let them just go by, not identify, not cling to them, not get distracted by them, and this is how you build the muscle of the mind. Now, if you feel like, or you want to look to see if you do absolutely need an app to help you get started, that's fine. I personally actually started with the Headspace app. Now, I'm going to recommend to you an app called Waking Up by Sam Harris. I think it is the best possible meditation app if you feel you want to start with one. They have like a 30-day starting program to help guide you through it, and it is guided, okay, so that might be better for some of you, but you don't really need that. I started my habit up with Headspace on that, especially because it had a streak counter and all that type of stuff. I think Waking Up is better because it doesn't have a streak counter, because streak counters is counterintuitive to meditation. Meditation is not about building up a streak, because it's literally supposed to be a practice that you do for the rest of your life, and some days you're gonna fall off and you just start again the next day. If you build up a streak, now you start to develop a certain relationship with it where it's like, oh, I broke my my streak, I'll start Monday, and that type of bullshit mindset. Don't think anybody really needs it. If you need an app, try waking up. If not, no need to spend the money. Try my technique out. It's very simple, it's very basic, but it is just as effective as the rest of them. Lastly, be sure to check out some of my top recommendations as far as books go. A lot of these have to do with ways to level up your consciousness and essentially improve your practice of meditation. Combine that with the knowledge and abilities to level up your consciousness like I just mentioned, and all of a sudden you're gonna see in 90 days from now, 3 months, you're gonna be an entirely different person. You're gonna feel different, you're gonna look different, you're gonna carry yourself differently, and life will appear completely different than what you see it as now. Your entire perception of life itself and reality will change for the better. Absolute mental control, emotional control, and permanent peace awaits you if your experience is anything like mine is with meditation. I'm curious to know if you have any experience with meditation yourself. Drop them in the comments below, or any other insights as well. Thanks so much for watching. Let's level up. I'll catch you in the next one. I'm out.